If your grandparents fed a whole family off their own land through winter and you could not grow a week of meals today to save your life, pull up a chair because what I am about to share changes that. In the summer of 1936, a widow named Clara Hollis stood in her Ohio garden under a scorching July sun and pressed a handful of small, pale seeds into the soil of a bed she had just cleared of early beans. She had 4 children depending on her and no way to send anyone to the store. That one planting, combined with a goat and a small flock of hens, carried her family from October straight through to March. She never handed a single dollar to a grocer from first frost to last thaw. Most people today could not tell you what she planted. They could not feed their household off their own ground for 7 days if every store in town closed its doors. And here is the part that should stop you cold. That exact crop is still sitting on the seed rack right now for $2 a packet. The people who quietly took over what Clara handled herself are also the reason her name never got passed down to you. Before we go any further, here is something worth sitting with. The average grocery store holds roughly 3 days of food supply for the people it serves. 3 days. Your great-grandmother's root cellar held a season. The gap between those two numbers is not wealth. It was never money. It was knowledge. And that knowledge is what we are rebuilding today, one crop at a time. What Clara pressed into that bed on a hot July morning was a purple-top white globe turnip, open-pollinated, been in American seed catalogs since before the Civil War, sown in the most brutal week of summer on ground that had already produced a full spring harvest. That single act fed 4 children until the ground thawed in spring. That is the whole system. That is everything, right there in your hand for $2. By the time this script is finished, you will know exactly when to plant it, how to pull 2 separate harvests from one sowing, how to hold it through winter without a refrigerator, and the one piece of this system that the modern food industry quietly buried because it meant you would never need to buy from them again. My family has worked this same ridge since the 1700s. My grandfather kept a leather journal where he copied down every growing practice, every variety, every storage trick his own father taught him. The same recorded system fed 8 people through the Great Depression on this property. He made me promise it would not die with me. This is me keeping that promise. Nothing here faded because it stopped working. The grocery supply chain and the refrigerated produce truck needed your winter vegetable bill paid to someone other than yourself. We are going to walk through exactly how to take that bill back. There are 6 steps to doing this right. Most people who try it miss one and blame the crop. The first 5 you can learn in a single afternoon. They will carry you from October to Christmas with food you grew yourself. The 6th step is the one that was buried deepest. It is also the one that turns a good fall harvest into a self-sustaining food system you never pay to restart. We build to it. Let us start at the beginning. The first step is choosing the right variety and planting it in the right week. Get this wrong and nothing that follows it matters at all. Picture a man standing at the edge of a freshly cleared bean bed in late July, sweat on his hat brim, shaking a seed packet into his palm. Seeds no bigger than a pinhead, pale, oval, catching afternoon light. He would say, plant these today and you will be eating off them until the red bud blooms in spring. The variety is purple top white globe turnip, open-pollinated, grown in American gardens for generations. That is the one to buy. Any open-pollinated garden turnip works within this system, but do not pick up a packet marked F1. The reason for that comes in the 6th step, and it is the most important reason of all. The week to plant depends on where you live. The honest rule is this: count backward 10 weeks from your area's average first hard freeze date and mark that week on your calendar. In most of the country, that puts you in the last days of July or the first 2 weeks of August. Plant earlier and the summer heat causes the roots to bolt and turn woody. Plant later in a cold climate and you run out of growing days before the roots size up. 10 weeks is the number. The bed itself should be somewhere an early crop already finished. Spent peas, early beans, spring lettuce, finished garlic. Pull the old plant material out, rake the surface loose, work in a shovel of finished compost per foot of row. Do not use fresh manure anywhere near a root crop this close to harvest. Well rotted only. Food safety matters on anything a family eats raw or lightly cooked. One variety, one packet, one prepared bed, sown in the last hot week. That is how a system that carries a family through 5 months of winter begins. The common failure here is buying a hybrid packet by accident. Read the label. Look for the words open-pollinated, OP, or heirloom. If it says F1 anywhere on that packet, put it back on the rack. Seed racks are half hybrid today, not because hybrids taste better, but because a hybrid cannot reproduce itself true, which means you have to come back and buy again. That is not a coincidence. That is a business model. Step 1 this week is simple. Walk into any farm and garden store and buy 1 packet of open-pollinated purple top white globe turnip seed, $2. That is the beginning. The second step is how you put the seed in the ground. 2 numbers. Miss either one and you end up with a patchy stand or tangled roots that never size properly. Depth, 1/4 to 1/2 inch, no deeper. In a late July or August bed, planting deeper means the seed is sitting in dry soil and may never push through to the surface. Row spacing, 12 to 18 inches apart. 12 if your bed is compact and you plan to thin aggressively. 18 if you want room to move between rows and pull weeds without crushing plants. Drag a shallow groove along the row with the corner of a hand tool. Drop seed thin along that groove. Cover with fine surface soil to about the depth of your fingernail. Press it down firmly with the flat of your hand. That direct contact between seed and damp soil is what wakes germination up. Water immediately after planting, not a flood, a steady soak that wets the top inch of soil. Do it the evening you plant and again the next morning if the sun is strong. University extension services today teach the same numbers, 1/4 to 1/2 inch deep, rows 12 to 18 inches apart. Land-grant universities confirmed in current gardening bulletins what experienced ridge farmers recorded in pencil journals decades ago, because the biology of a turnip seed has not changed. A packet of open-pollinated seed costs $2 at the farm store. A bunch of turnip greens in a winter produce aisle costs $3 to $4 and feeds one person one meal. One correctly planted packet is a fall and winter of those meals. The failure most people make is planting too deep and then watering too hard. Seed washes deeper or the crust bakes over it. Shallow, firm, moist. That is the whole spec. Now here's the part most people skip entirely, and it is why their turnips come up crowded and stringy and not worth cooking. The third step is the one that makes this crop feed your family twice from a single planting. Clara Hollis never wasted a leaf. She ran this patch as a green through August and September and pulled it as a root from October onward, 2 harvests from one morning's work. When your seedlings reach 3 to 4 inches tall, thin them. Pull the weakest and the ones crowded too close together. Leave the strongest plants standing every 3 to 4 inches down the row. Do not throw those thinnings away. Rinse them and put them on the table. That is the first meal this bed gives you, before a single root has sized. Once the remaining plants reach 8 to 10 inches of leaf height, you can begin cutting outer leaves for the kitchen. Take no more than 1/3 of any plant at one cutting. Leave the crown completely alone. The plant will keep pushing new growth for weeks, giving you repeated cuttings while the root beneath it develops steadily. When roots reach 2 to 3 inches across at the shoulder, you can begin pulling. Smaller roots are tender and go straight to the kitchen. Larger ones go to storage. If a hard frost arrives before everything has fully sized, that is not a crisis. A light frost actually sweetens the turnip root. Pull everything before the ground freezes solid. Harvest at 2 to 3 inches across the top. Extension services confirm this directly in current gardening guidance. 2 to 3 inches is the measurement. Bigger than that and the root goes woody at the center. The failure at this stage is leaving the bed unthinned. You end up with a mat of competing plants and no roots worth eating. Thin ruthlessly. It feels wasteful until you eat the thinnings and realize they are the first supper the bed handed you. Cutting more than 1/3 of the leaf at one time is the other failure. The plant stalls. Root growth stops. Take 1 outer leaf per plant per visit, and the bed keeps producing. Wash the greens twice in cold water. Sand hides deep in the leaf ribs, and you will find it the hard way if you skip that step. Mark your calendar for 4 weeks after planting. That is your first thinning and your first meal off this bed. Now the August heat is going to try to kill this bed. What comes next decides whether you have a crop at all.
The fourth step is keeping a cool season plant alive through the hot.
You know the bed is working when you walk out at first light and see hundreds of small green loops arching up out of damp soil, seedlings just breaking through. You know it is failing when the surface has baked into a dry crust by noon. Water morning and evening for the first 10 days after planting. Keep the top half-inch damp, not soaked. Lay a thin layer of clean straw over the row immediately after planting, roughly the thickness of your hand. The moment seedlings show themselves, pull that straw back to the sides and leave it there as mulch between rows. If your climate runs brutal summer heat, a scrap of shade cloth or even an old bed sheet propped a foot above the bed on sticks for the first week is old, cheap, and effective. Once seedlings reach 2 inches of height, shift to deeper, less frequent watering. You want the roots chasing moisture downward into cooler soil, not hanging near the surface where heat finds them. Water at the base of the plant at dusk or early morning. Never overhead water in midday heat. There is a line worth remembering from the kind of compact, practical wisdom ridge farmers pass down through generations. Plant at dusk, cover with straw, water twice. 6 words. That is the complete heat management plan for a late summer turnip bed. University Extension Services teach the same principle today in considerably more words. The first time many people try a late summer planting, they sow at midday because they are outside and it is convenient. The bed dries by afternoon, half the seed never surfaces. The fix is simple. Sow a second round at dusk and water it properly. One lost packet is a teaching moment, not a reason to quit the system. Sow after the heat leaves the bed, water immediately, cover with straw, check morning and evening for 10 days, get the bed through August, and by October you have food. And that is exactly where the last piece of the 5 becomes critical, because this step determines whether you eat through November or through March. The 5th step is holding this harvest from October through the end of winter without a refrigerator. Walk into a functioning root cellar in January and the air is cold against your face, damp but not dripping. It smells like clean earth and stone. Pick up a turnip you pulled in October and it is still firm in your hand, still cool, still a meal. That is what you are building toward. Pull roots on a dry day. Twist the tops off about an inch above the crown rather than cutting. Twisting seals the break and slows moisture loss and decay at the entry point. Do not wash the roots before storage. Brush loose dirt off with a gloved hand. Moisture on the skin of a stored root is the beginning of rot. Reject any root with a soft spot, a crack, or damage from a garden fork before it goes into storage. Eat those ones first. Only the clean, firm, undamaged roots go into long-term storage. The storage condition is as close to freezing as possible without actually freezing, paired with high humidity. The traditional range is 32 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit, with humidity kept as high as possible without standing water. The simple version for anyone without a root cellar is a wooden or plastic box lined with slightly damp sand or sawdust. Layer it. Sand, then roots, not touching each other, then more sand. Keep that box in an unheated basement corner, an attached garage that stays above freezing, or a crawl space with stable cold temperatures. Check it once a month. A working storage setup looks like firm roots, slightly damp, no smell. A failing one announces itself with soft spots, darkening skin, or a sour fermenting odor. Pull any failing root immediately. One going bad pulls the ones beside it into rot. Extension services confirm the science directly. Cool temperatures and high humidity slow the biological processes that break a root down. That is plant biology. It is not changed. What changed is that a refrigerator showed up in every kitchen, and the box in the corner of the crawl space got called old-fashioned and inefficient. The box in the basement corner runs on 0 electricity and holds 5 months of food. Your refrigerator holds a week. 1 box, 1 bag of sand, 1 inexpensive thermometer. Set that up before October and you have your winter supply system in place. Do all 5 of these steps and you eat off 1 July sowing into February. But the 6th step is the one nobody teaches anymore. It is also the step that turned what Clara Hollis did in 1936 into something that fed her family every winter for the rest of her life and her children's families after that without ever paying for seed again. Here is the piece they buried hardest.
Clara Hollis had been planting that same turnip bed for 11 years by the summer of 1936. She had not purchased a seed packet since before her husband passed. She was carrying the variety forward herself, season after season. She was not only growing a winter food supply.
She was growing next year's seed at the same time. The sixth step is seed saving. In October, when you pull roots for storage, set 3 or 4 of the best ones aside. Not the largest, the best shaped, the healthiest, the ones that look most true to the variety. In a cold climate, store those select roots through winter the same way you store the rest, then replant them in early spring with the crown just at the soil surface. In a mild climate, leave them in the ground under a layer of straw mulch and let them carry through winter on their own. Come the second year, those roots send up a flower stalk 3 to 4 feet tall. Yellow blossoms open along it. Then long, narrow seed pods form and begin to dry on the plant. When those pods turn brown and papery, cut the stalks. Hang them upside down inside a paper bag in a dry location and shake. That bag fills with hundreds of small, pale oval seeds, some years thousands. That is next year's planting, and the year after, and every year after that. Open-pollinated varieties like purple top, white globe reproduce true from saved seed. The plant hands itself down faithfully through each generation. That is exactly why the seed industry developed and patented hybrid varieties. A saved seed from a hybrid does not grow true. It breaks down. You have to come back and buy it again every single season. Clara Hollis understood that in 1925. The biology has not changed since then. 1 packet of open-pollinated purple top white globe turnip seed, $2. Put it in a kitchen drawer. On the last week of July or the first week of August, put it in the ground. That is step 1. 1 packet, 1 bed, 1 evening of work, and you will eat off it into next year. If this brought something back for you, if your people grew a fall turnip patch or kept a root cellar or planted storage cabbage or rutabaga along a fence line, say so below. The crop that shows up most in the comments is the one I go deepest on next, the same way we went through this one today. If you found this useful, hit the like button and follow my channel so you catch the next one when it drops. Your great-grandmother fed a family off ground like yours, 1 small packet at a time. Now you know how she did it. Do not let it die with you.